The late first round is an interesting area of Dynasty rookie drafts. Today, we're going to be breaking down the number one draft strategy if you pick 109, 110, 111, 112 in your rookie drafts from both a Superflex frame of mind and a one quarterback frame of mind. We already discussed picks 101 to 104, picks 105 to 108 in previous videos, so definitely check those out, especially if you have multiple rookie first rounders this year. But as always, before we get into it, let's hit the intro. All right, so let's kick this video off. 109 through 112 draft strategy. We're going to start from a Superflex frame of mind as we did in the other videos. In each of these sections, we're going to basically go through who we have ranked 109 to 112, the players we would actually select if you stick and pick. And then we'll talk about some trade strategy, whether you want to trade down from those selections, if it's a good idea, and what you should be looking for. If you want to trade up from those selections, if it's a good idea, and what you should be looking to get. And then also, if you want to just straight up trade those picks straight for a veteran, and which veteran tiers you should be kind of looking to get. And of course, we're going to highlight some of the trades that you guys submitted over on my Twitter when I tweeted this out earlier today. So let's start it off with who do we actually have ranked 109 to 112? And unlike the 101 to 104 video and the 105 to 108 video, these guys kind of all represent the same tier. It's a pretty straightforward tier of Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey in some order. For me, it goes Worthy, McConkey, Thomas. For you, it's Thomas, McConkey, Worthy, and then Bo Nix as well. And I would say in most leagues, there's going to be times where Brock Bowers slides down to this area as well. So I decided to include him in this screenshot. But primarily, it's those top three tier 2 receivers and then Bo Nix.
Yeah, I mean, this is the pick your flavor tier of the draft. If you're picking between the 109 and the 112, we'll talk about the trade strategy, whether you want to trade up, trade down, or trade for a veteran. But specifically, if you're picking, like, these are the guys we have ranked here. Obviously, Bowers, Thomas, McConkey, Worthy, Bo Nix in some order. But it's the pick your flavor area. Do you need a quarterback? I don't mind taking Bo Nix in that area. You need a tight end? Brock Bowers falls, absolutely, he'd be the pick. If you need a wide receiver, these three wide receivers, I do feel like after the Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors are off the board, are your three best bets. Yes, before, you get into the Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette area, which that would be more so in the early to mid-second, in my opinion. These kind of wide receivers stand out. So it's really just, what do you need on your roster? Do you need a wide receiver? Do you need a quarterback? Do you need a tight end? And the running backs, too, I can see running back one coming off the board at, the 111, the 112 area. Like we kind of mentioned in multiple videos in the past, we personally probably couldn't pull the trigger on Brooks or Benson over any of those three wide receivers. But once you get to the 112, if you don't need an extra quarterback and you want to take Brooks, you want to take Benson over Bo Nix, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and I would be cool with it if you're just not a fan of one of those three receivers also. Like maybe you don't like Brian Thomas Jr. very much. You don't like Ladd McConkey very much. You don't like Xavier Worthy very much. But yeah, I would say like we could transition right into the topic of trading down from this selection, because to me, the reason you'd be trading down most likely is because you want a running back and you don't want to select them, say, at 109 or at 110 over Xavier Worthy, over Ladd McConkey, over Brian Thomas, over Bo Nix, over some of the other options there. So running back need, to me, would be the chief reason why you would actually want to trade down, especially if you're in the early portion of this, the 109, 110 area especially, because you look at your roster, let's say you already have 6 great wide receivers, you already have 3 good quarterbacks, you already have a solidified tight end with some depth. There's a reason you're going to be looking to grab a running back in this spot. And I would say a lot of people in our audience, especially, probably built it very fragile at running back and built up their other positions if you're coming out of a rebuild and you're looking to transition into your house money window or into your contending window. So for me, the right move is, instead of just taking Brooks at 109 or instead of just taking him at 110, try and slide down a few picks, go get some value, still get a running back with the 202 or the 203 or whatever pick that, Benson or Brooks you think will be on the board. And you can see a trade that Main Event here did. He didn't actually specify he traded down for a running back. I'm just assuming that you could trade down for a running back in this scenario where he traded down from the 112, maybe didn't want to take Bo Nix or didn't want to take one of the running backs ahead of one of those wide receivers. He gets the 202, a 2025 second from a third move up, and the 310 for Jake Browning in here. So again, he didn't specify that this was for a running back, but if the reason you're trying to trade down is for a running back, I do think that this would be the type of framework you'd be looking at.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think this is a great process move. In theory here, you're trading down 2 picks, you're pocketing that second to third jump up, and you're pocketing a profit from Jake Browning to that 310. So this is a great move, in my opinion, especially if you're on a roster that really doesn't have needs. Like, let's just say you're, a house money type of team. You're just accumulating value. At this point, getting that free second to third upgrade in Browning for the 310, you're still getting a player between 202 versus 112 that, in my opinion, is going to be valued in the same tier, whether that's Brooks versus one of those wide receivers, whether that's, maybe you trade down for Bo Nix here because you lost Jake Browning. Regardless, though, the way I kind of view this is that specifically once you get to the 111 to like the 203, 204, 205, there isn't much separating a lot of these prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. Any one of these guys, like I've had drafts where Xavier Worthy's gone 109. I've had drafts where Bo Nix has gone 109. I've had drafts where Jonathan Brooks has gone like 110, 111 in one of my drafts as well. So with this range, it is going to depend on the team's needs who are picking in this range, especially knowing that 109 to 112, generally speaking, the people that are picking here have their own first rounder most of the time, and they're picking for whatever their contending roster needs. If they need wide receiver depth, they're taking a wide receiver. If they need running back help, they're taking a running back. If they need a third quarterback, they're probably in a position where they already have two good ones. If they were picking this late in the draft, they're probably taking Bo Nix in that scenario. So again, trading down could be challenging in this area because, some people are just, not willing to pay up for the tier jump of an Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, because they view, 202 to 112 or to 111 or whatever. It's not that big of a deal. I'll just sit here at 202 and see what falls. That's what I've noticed in a lot of my leagues when I've tried to trade down from these picks, is that it's not been really, people ringing the phones off the hook trying to get up.
Yeah, the deals you get are like, yeah, I have the 204 and I want to offer like my 2025 third to move up. And then at that point, it's like, okay, 204 versus 112, the 2024 or 2025 third doesn't really make up the difference, in my opinion. But those are some of the offers you get. Now, obviously, if you get an offer like Main Event did, you absolutely take it. You absolutely snap on it because, like I said, you're going to be thanking yourself once you come 2025 draft and you see that the initial 2025 third that you have isn't on your roster, but you upgraded it to that 2025 too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what you'd be looking for in a trade down scenario, but you never know. What are you getting offered is the real big question. What's the market for that pick? And sometimes it's not in a good spot there. So let's transition into trading up for these picks. And as we just talked about in the trading down example, the inverse is true as well. Like if people are not willing to trade up into this area, it probably means that you're not able to trade down very often as well. So let me just say this about trading up involving, say, picks 109 to 112. I'm much more likely to actually use these to trade from to get up higher than I am to actually, say, use my 203 to get up into this area. And as much as I like Xavier Worthy, as much as I like Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr., if I have the 109 to 112, I might try and get up even further to try and get a quarterback like Jaden Daniels or Drake May, or a better receiver like a Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, or even a JJ McCarthy or a Brock Bowers if I needed a quarterback or a tight end. So for me, like the trading up part of this, I haven't seen honestly really any deals in any of my leagues where someone has traded up from like 204 to the 110 or whatever. Like most of the time that their people are just sticking and picking there, or they're using those picks to trade up even higher up into the draft board in that 1 through 8 area. And we covered that ad nauseum in the first two videos.
Yeah, 100%. And it makes sense, right? People feel very comfortable about the consensus top 7, consensus top 8, potentially if you're in a tight end premium league. I do feel like Brock Bowers will be valued as the consensus 108 on the market. I mean, people view that like realistically, Worthy, McConkey, Brian Thomas, there's not much separating them to the point where nobody really wants to take the falling sword at the 109. Nobody really wants to take that first receiver off the board. And that's why so many people want to trade down because, I mean, we just mentioned the 3 wide receivers. Some people might have Keon Coleman valued in that bunch. Some people might have Xavier Legette valued in that bunch. Some people might have, I mean, I think this is out there, but maybe you're a Pats fan and you have Jalen Polk in that area. You know what I mean? Like there's more diversity, I would say, in this range of your rankings versus people pretty much understand 101 is either Caleb or Marvin Harrison. The other one's going to be 102. 103 to 105 is going to be the 2 quarterbacks and Malik Neighbors. 106, 107, 108 is going to be some combo of JJ McCarthy, Rome Odunze, and Brock Bowers. People really understand that. But once you get to the 109 is when you see rankings across the board really starting to vary.
Yeah, the only guy that I've seen fall in like the 6 rookie drafts that I'm in into this area is Bowers. I have not seen Odunze fall this far. I've not seen JJ. JJ fell to 108. That's the furthest he's fallen, but he has not fallen to the 109 to 112 range in any of the drafts that I've been in. So yeah, like you said, I think most of the people view this tier as get your guys tier, right? Go get Worthy if you love Worthy like I do. Go get Brian Thomas if you love Brian Thomas like you do. Like everybody has a guy in this tier, and I think that's why nobody's really willing to move off of these picks because you're not getting good enough offers. It's not like nobody's knocking on my door at 109 and offering me their 2024 202 and their 2025 first. Like it's never happening.
No. It's not happening. And like maybe you'd be able to get, if you're lucky, a 2025 1 and 2 for your 110, for your 111. But realistically, there's not a lot of action going because people do not want to be the first person to take the top of the board, knowing that, I mean, this is what we've preached, man. You don't want to be the one that starts off the tier. You want to be the one that closes off the tier. So in terms of an opportunity cost standpoint, if you can get a little extra to move down and take the bottom of the tier, maybe you profit a 2025 2, maybe you profit the 207 this year. A lot of people from a process standpoint are under that same understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the next option that you would have with your pick 109 to 112. And I believe more so than the 104 to 105 or 101 to 104 video and the 105 to 108 video, trading for a veteran becomes an appealing option with this selection because, as I kind of talked about already, this class is deep. It's rookie fever. Everybody wants access to these players: Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, Bo Nix, the guys that are going in this range. And also, if you're picking here, there's a good chance you actually have a competitive team because it's probably your own first-round pick that you have. So there's a good chance that trading for a veteran would be an appealing option for that reason as well, is that you maybe just need a quarterback 3, or you just need a wide receiver 3, or you just need a running back 2, or whatever, or you need a tight end. Like, that's why, again, we don't talk about filling out your needs in May very often, but if you're going to do it, doing it via trade actually makes a lot more sense. Like, if you're on the board at 110 and you need a wide receiver to help you win right away, you might not want to wait for Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, or Brian Thomas Jr. to get up to speed. You might just be like, you know what? I'm just going to sell this pick. I'm going to trade my 110, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to get DK Metcalf or Deebo Samuel or Mike Evans or somebody that's going to help me win immediately. Like, that's an appealing option in this range. Again, we're going to talk about values and how to actually stack this up and look over some trades, but it does become an appealing option in this area of the draft.
Well, I actually have 2 examples. So the reason why I group this in trading for a veteran is because they actually involve 2 trades in this league. So, for example, in the Ladster League, I actually made 2 deals involving picks in this range. I had Kyle Pitts. I already had Mark Andrews on my roster, Dynasty Best Ball League. My team is loaded. I won the championship last year. All picks in the cupboard pretty much, other than I think my 2025 one, which I traded in a deal up from Murray to get Patrick Mahomes. I had Kyle Pitts as my backup tight end. So I said, you know what? I do need a little bit more depth on this roster. Obviously, given the nature that it's a Dynasty Best Ball, having able bodies that can enter your lineup even becomes more important. I traded Kyle Pitts for the 112, the 204, and the 206. Sorry, Kyle Pitts in the 2025 2 for the 112, the 204, and the 206. At the 112, I took Bo Nix. The guy wanted, who was picking at the 205, really wanted Bo Nix. He's like, damn, like, you sniped me. What can we do here? I was able to trade down. Again, very, very competitive team. I don't really need Bo Nix that much. Was able to trade down from the 112 to the 205. I picked up Derek Carr. I picked up the 310. And at the 204 to 206, I was able to nab Michael Penix Jr., Adonai Mitchell, and Xavier Legette. For me, that makes sense. Derek Carr can be my quarterback 3 right now in a best ball league while, Michael Penix is getting up to speed. And then I still have that value accrual with the young quarterback with Michael Penix versus Bo Nix. Yes, I would prefer Bo Nix, but if I'm getting a little bit of a plus as a contending team, that made sense to me. And at the 310, I was able to get Audric Estime.
Yeah, pretty solid moves. And I made a similar move too. I traded the 112, the 201, and the 307 for T. Higgins and Devon Achane. And I'm in a best ball league also. It's the exact same situation your team is in, where I'm looking for depth wide receivers that can enter my lineup. Achane and Higgins are also the types of guys in fantasy I've noticed that are just very good in best ball because they deal with injuries, and you need to, when they're in the lineup, they're good, but they're not always healthy and that kind of thing. So that's why I made those trades. We also see some other examples of trading for veteran here. 109 was sent away with Khalil Shakir to get Trevor Lawrence. I don't know how you got Lawrence for that cheap, but I will say that's exactly kind of precisely what we're talking about here, is that rookie fever takes over. People really want these players, and you're able to get discounts on veterans. Basically, the next deal, selling 109 and 110, which became Xavier Worthy and Brian Thomas Jr., plus Aiden O'Connell for some reason, getting Jamar Chase out of that. 2 late ones for Jamar Chase? Yeah, sign me the hell up. So that's exactly what we mean when we say it makes sense to trade for veterans for 2 reasons. Number 1, people want these picks because they want these rookies. And number 2, if you have a late pick, you're probably contending.
Yeah, 100%. And contextualizing this deal, let's just say, before you go to the comments, be like, well, I can't trade Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, and Aiden O'Connell for Jamar Chase in my league. Even if you subbed in, let's just say you're a contending team, that's a 2025 first-round pick. Worthy, Thomas, late first-round pick for Jamar Chase if somebody's rebuilding. Like, I can see that type of deal being done. Now, obviously, if you guys watch the channel, you would realize that we're not advocates for trading away a guy like Jamar Chase unless you're getting a needle mover back. Like, for example, when we made the move, you were able to get Garrett Wilson plus. Like, that's probably what it's going to look like in most leagues. It's probably not going to look like just Worthy and Thomas straight up for Chase. But I mean, the point here is the macro idea of being able to trade for needle moving assets if you have already a bunch of these late first round picks stockpiled up, and you can make that needle moving type of move given your situation.
Yeah, and conversely too, if you're a rebuilder and you just have late first round picks because you have a lot of picks, you could also aim to get more draft capital in this area. I think this is a good range to target if you're looking to sell off guys like Amari Cooper or Mike Evans or Devontae Adams. Like, if you have these players on a rebuilding roster, this is the range that I would target realistically, because not a lot of teams are going to knock on your door and offer you 104 for those guys. It's more likely that you're going to get offers in this range of the draft. So, I mean, Party Bucko here, he sold off Amari Cooper in a late 2025 second for the 110 a couple weeks back. That's exactly precisely the type of deal that you would want to make. If you're a rebuilding team, Ladd McConkey or Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., or even Bo Nix at 110 is going to further your rebuild a lot more than having Amari Cooper in a late second would. So again, it kind of works both ways. If you're a contender, you can make a lot of win-win deals where the rebuilding side is even happy with the assets that you gave them. And you're in a rebuild situation, you can sell off a lot of your contending assets for picks in this range. So I would say trading the veteran market is one thing that I would love to hammer home about this 109 to 112 range. Is it's a good way to buy veterans if you're a contender, and a good way to sell veterans if you're a rebuilder, even if it's package deals. You got Keenan Allen plus a bunch of other guys, Joe Mixon and Derrick Henry on your roster. Aim for the 111 plus a 2025 second or something like that. Like, that's the range that you want to target, because these young receivers are definitely going to have value if they hit. If Xavier Worthy hits, if Brian Thomas Jr. hits, if Ladd McConkey hits, they're going to end up being top 15 dynasty receivers before their rookie season's done.
100%. I mean, they're already guys that I have valued as top 25 overall dynasty wide receivers. So you're going to be wondering, okay, well, what type of range, if I'm trying to buy veterans, would I want to pay for this pick? And for example, if somebody's offering me, Deebo Samuel for the 110, should I take it? Well, no. When we're contextualizing the fact that those guys are top 25 dynasty wide receivers, I have them ranked above the guys like Deebo. I have them ranked above a guy like DK Metcalf. I have them ranked above a guy like, we have listed here, for example, JSN, James
George
Cook.
Pickens.
Yeah, the premise here is if you're trading for one of these veterans in this list, Kyron, DK, Pacheco, Rice, etc., you should be able to get a little plus on top if you were to trade that 110 asset, in my opinion, given the market for these wide receivers specifically.
Yeah, and maybe you can get up to guys a little bit ahead of this tier, the Nico Collins, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddles of the world at wide receiver, and at tight end, maybe you can get up to add a plus in and get Sam Laporta or whatever the case that you need to do. Again, trading for veterans is definitely the move, I think, in 109 to 112 range. If you don't want to just sit there and spend the pick on whatever player falls to you, I think trading for a veteran would be the move that I would opt for, even if you're a rebuilding team. Like, if you are on the board at 109 and you're not hugely in love with any of these players here, you could go after a buy low veteran on the cheap. Like, maybe people in your league are not high on Drake London because he hasn't done anything yet. Like, you could go after players like that. Chris Olave, a guy that gets a lot of unnecessary hate for his situation too. Like, you could trade for young players that'll still further your rebuild, but you're taking less of a risk than just re-rolling it into a young rookie.
Well, the other thing too, you mentioned, maybe you want to take on some risk. You have a team that's ready to compete right now. You finished third in your league last year because you got the 110. If the Rashid Rice owner is just completely panicking and you can get Rice plus their 2025 too in exchange for 110, there's multiple paths to winning that deal now, because if Rice ends up being the guy that we expected last year, the productive receiver for Patrick Mahomes, and is able to get over that legal trouble, if you're willing to take on some risk, then Rice could end up being just valued over that 110 straight up, and you also have that 2025 too to insulate that trade.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of options there. Let's pivot this conversation over to single quarterback formats. Again, we're talking 109 to 112. The players are going to differ here, because in one quarterback leagues, this should be the honeypot where the running backs are going. This should be the honeypot where the quarterbacks are going in one quarterback leagues as well. And it should be the start of the tier 3 wide receivers. So you mentioned them earlier: Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Adonai Mitchell, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen Polk, anybody that you kind of value in that range. That's kind of the range that you're looking at here with 109 to 112. For me and for us, we have both running backs ranked in this area. We have Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels kind of all ranked in this area. And then the start of that tier, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette in that area. Like Adonai Mitchell, Ricky Pearsall, those guys are a little bit more into the second round. Not really. I would say it's a reach on those guys if you took them at the back end of the first round in a one quarterback format. But and obviously, too, like should Worthy, Thomas, or McConkey fall to you, they're obviously great options at this point. But most likely, you're looking at the running back honeypot, quarterback honeypot, and the start of those tier 3 wide receivers.
I would say no one quarterback. If it's like the 112, I think Keon Coleman and Xavier Legette are fine there. But like if you don't need a quarterback specifically, because obviously we have Caleb and Drake valued higher. Let's just say you do your due diligence. Nobody's willing to trade up for a quarterback and a single quarterback, and you have like Josh Allen and Dak Prescott as your two quarterbacks. Maybe at that point, like, yeah, cool. Get Keon Coleman, stacks with Josh Allen. Get Xavier Legette, first round wide receiver. Like, I do feel like in a single quarterback, those two wide receivers specifically are in the tier with those three quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. One quarterback leagues are finicky, man. Like just because we have Caleb, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels inside our top 14, like it's possible that in a 10-teamer, especially like 10-team one quarterback league, like those guys definitely lose a whole lot of value because everybody's going to have good starting quarterbacks at that point too. Probably multiple good starting quarterbacks on their dynasty roster. So yeah, those are the players we would actually select if you were to stick and pick in a one quarterback league and you're picking in this 109 to 112 range. Trading down, we'll pivot into that conversation. This isn't really a spot I'd actually be willing to trade down from in a one quarterback format because you can catch the end of those tiers. Like I said, there's a chance that one of McConkey, Thomas, and Worthy fall to you, especially if you're like right at 109. But also, too, like everybody in one quarterback league seems to be like very much valuing the running back position, and that should be the range where it actually goes. And then again, to the quarterbacks and the other wide receivers, the tier 3 wide receivers, it's going to start to drop off after this 109 to 112 range. So for me, yeah, you can move down, say, to the 204 if you don't view a big difference between your 111, which becomes Keon Coleman, versus the 204, which becomes Adonai Mitchell, and you can move down no problem. But to me, I'm actually like not a fan of those moves unless you're pocketing a ton to move down. In one quarterback leagues, depth is way less important. So in Superflex, I mean, you trade down, you accumulate assets in the future. But if somebody's picking 204 and I'm picking 110, and he wants to come up and get Keon Coleman or whatever, and I'm going to go down and get Ricky Pearsall or Adonai Mitchell, and he's going to give me his late projected 2025 second to get that done. It's like that doesn't move the needle in a one quarterback format. So needle moving trades, they're probably just not going to happen in this area of the draft, which is why I think trading down is not really a good option here. The overarching advice here is that if you're going to trade this pick in general, it should be up or for a veteran.
The way I describe this, especially in single quarterback, because we do have a lot of single quarterback viewers. Like some of you out there do not play in Superflex leagues. Like comment down below if you are in a single quarterback dynasty draft and not a Superflex league. Because to be honest, the advice does differ. We talk about a lot of stuff in the frame of a Superflex type of startup mentality, Superflex draft mentality. But that's more so saying, hey, like, and the majority of your Superflex drafts, obviously the quarterback position is going to be valued higher because you can start 2 per week. But specifically, too, with 11, 12, 13 starters, depth matters more. Value accumulation matters more. There's more liquidity on the market. Once you're in a one quarterback, start 7, start 8 type of league, depth does not matter nearly as much. And in fact, in shallower starting lineups, you should be pooling all your depth to people that think depth matters, to be honest. Like if Jamar Chase is going to be had and you can give up the 107, 108, and 110 in a one quarterback league, you do it every single time is basically the premise of this. Yes, of course, if you're in a completely tanking situation, you don't need production, maybe that advice doesn't suit you. But in most situations, I'm using my depth to go buy needle movers in a one quarterback league. And if somebody in your league is willing to down tier from those guys for depth, that's what you take advantage of because of the nature of start 7, start 8, start 9 in the majority of these one quarterback leagues.
Yeah, it behaves a little bit more like redraft, right? Like in redraft, we always talk about 2-for-1 trade ups and 3-for-1 deals and that kind of stuff. That's kind of an overarching theme of one quarterback dynasty leagues. And that's why we don't personally play in one quarterback dynasty leagues. We like the idea of having to build out deep starting rosters, deep benches and stuff because it just makes it more fun. Otherwise, in one quarterback leagues, like you said, I would just sell the 3 first-round picks that I collected for Justin Jefferson every single time.
100%. And in terms of trading up to this range, like Corey said, this is the honeypot area because specifically the RB1 could be off the board here. Maybe if you're in a running back heavy league, both running backs will cause the wide receivers to fall. Like there's a lot of value in this late first area. So if you have your eye on some player, like for example, what Graham is able to do here, trading the 111 plus the 209 in exchange for the 108 and the 312. Like we said, in a one quarterback league, depth is depth. 209 versus 312 is not a needle moving type of difference. 111 to 108 could be if there's a player that slips like a Worthy, like a McConkey, like a Brian Thomas.
Yeah, and he said specifically the way he had it ranked was 108 was a tier break for him. So I'm assuming 108 being tier break was the 6 wide receivers, his RB1, and Brock Bowers. I'm assuming is how he had the tier break laid out. And he was like, I want to make sure I get one of those players. And whether it's one of the receivers or Jonathan Brooks or whatever guy that he was after, it makes sense to make moves like this. So that's why I would say more so we could have split this up. We definitely could have and said 109 and 110 is more so the honeypot, whereas 111 and 112 is maybe the area that you'd be okay trading down. But again, regardless, I think knowing that the boards at this area of the draft are going to differ league to league a lot, I think generally speaking, this 109 to 112 could be grouped all together and say, yeah, you're going to get a decent player. You might get sniped if you're at 111. Maybe all the best players go off the board and you're forced to trade for a veteran or you're forced to trade down or whatever the case is. But that's maybe why you would consider making a move up. So again, overarching advice here is that trading down is probably not going to be very profitable in this area of the draft. Trading up potentially could be very profitable. And also, like we said, with Superflex too, trading for a veteran is definitely very profitable in this area of the draft in one quarterback leagues. Because if you're able to get, let's say you're coming out of a contending window, you were a house money team last year, you snuck into the playoffs, you finished, 109 because you accidentally won a playoff game or whatever. And you want to sell 109 for Saquon Barkley, 109 for Josh Jacobs in a one quarterback format, I'm totally fine doing that. If you want to sell 110 for George Pickens or 111 for DK Metcalf or Deebo Samuel or Devontae Adams or whatever, I'm totally fine doing that in this area of the draft. Again, assuming certain players are off the board. If you're on the board at 111, all six, I guess, of the top receivers are off the board. Brock Bowers is gone. The top 2 running backs are gone. And you're staring down the barrel of, well, do I take Keon Coleman or do I trade this pick for Devontae Adams who can help me win my championship this year? At that point, it makes sense to trade for the veteran. So again, similar to the Superflex strategy, if you're going to trade any one of the first round picks for a veteran, 101 to 104, 105 to 108, 109 to 112, I do believe this area is the best area to trade for veterans.
100%, because it comes back to the fact that obviously in the Superflex, the honeypot's going to be pushed down a little bit more because of the top guys like Caleb, like Drake, like Jaden, like JJ. But at the same time, I mean, once you equate that to a one quarterback league, the fall off typically happens, like you said, around the 110, 111 area without those quarterbacks. You'll start to see, your Drake, your Jaden, your JJ kind of work in probably in the late first to mid second round area. Because I'm assuming Caleb, even in a one quarterback, is probably going to go in the top 8 or 9 picks in most leagues.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on scoring format. Like if it's a one quarterback league, but it's a 6 point per passing touchdown, it's a 12 team league. Yeah, like Caleb should still probably be a top 8 to 10 pick. But if it's a 10 team league or an 8 team league and it's a one quarterback start 7 or whatever, like Caleb's going in the mid second round, probably.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think that's good actualization. Like we're talking about it specifically from a 12-team one quarterback lens. Once you get to 10-man, once you get to 8-man, I mean, who knows? Like comment down below if you're in like an 8-man or under league. Like, I don't know. Is there someone out there psychotic enough to be in a 6-man league? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why we talk about things from like a 12-team lens, just as like a quick side tangent, is because that's all the leagues that we play in. Yeah. But the only way to really understand how we would adjust our advice to your specific league settings, an 8-man start 7 league,
more value
is to use our Dynasty trade calculator, because our Dynasty trade calculator is customizable. You can see the difference between an 8-man trade with the same players in it versus a 12-man Superflex start 11 tight end premium. Like there's a massive difference in a one quarterback start 8 on one side of a trade versus a start 12, tight end premium Superflex league.
The customization on the calculator is so nice because, again, you can adjust how many bench spots is your league, how many starters, flexes, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks. Is it a tight end premium? Is it a super flex? 8-man, 10-man, 12-man. Like there's so much customization
available. 14-man also available.
So much customization that simply isn't out there on the market. And the calculator actually adjusts to the inputs. Like, for example, if you're in an 8-man league, priority is going to be put upon those needle moving type of players. If you're in a 16-man start 12 league, well, guess what? Depth is going to matter, and the calculator is going to reflect that. So glad you mentioned that, because honest to God, like even for myself, when I'm plugging in deals to try to figure out, okay, I'm at the 108, for example, for in our Flock Me Silly League. I'm at the 108. I want to try to move up to the 104. What can I plug in here that is good, fair value for both sides that I'd be willing to give up, and that's worth it for him to move down? I plug it into the calculator. It's able to give me a guideline.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's hard for us to even contextualize how our leagues differ from each other, because we're in multiple leagues. Some of them have different settings. Some of them have tight end premiums. Some of them have 6-point per passing touchdown, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, trade calculator, quick plug there at the end of the video. But we could probably wrap this thing up. 109 to 112 was a little bit more straightforward than the 101 to 104, 105 to 108 videos, because there's less trade opportunities, because everybody, especially in Superflex, knows that top 7, top 8 overall tier of prospects. And then in one quarterback leagues, everybody knows that top 3, top 4 overall prospect tier. And then in the 105, 108 video, that's the honeypot for the wide receivers. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you got some value from it, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let us know what you're doing with these picks, 109 to 112. If you have them, have you traded for them? Have you traded down from your picks? Who are you selecting in those areas? We want to hear from you guys in the comments. And of course, we've plugged the Flock trade calculator. We've shown our rankings throughout this video as well. If you want access to everything and anything Dynasty Fantasy Football, head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up for 30% off, a 7-day free trial, 6 months for free. When you sign up annually, you'll get our Dynasty rankings, one quarterback, Superflex, our Dynasty trade calculator, our Dynasty trade value charts. You'll get our Dynasty rookie draft guide with all 50, 55 prospects ranked, player cards written up, comps, everything, fantasy outlooks, everything you should be doing in your rookie drafts, sleepers, values, fades in rookie drafts as well. Everything you could need is over on flockfantasy.com. So again, link will be down below for that in the pinned comment and in the description. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.